And today we are running the Exam Roster Generator, the tool that creates your complete exam supervision roster. Fair, transparent, and ready to distribute. A quick bit of context as to why this matters. Last week we saw that the exam solver can turn a 30 to 90 minute task into a 5 to 10 minute task. Today's tool tackles something much bigger. If you want a really good exam supervision roster, one that's fair, balanced, and properly considers all the rules, I've found that if you make it really complex and you have things like overlapping supervision times, in a medium-sized school, it can take 10 to 20 hours. The roster generator that we're going to show you today should get you there in 20 to 30 minutes. Maybe a tiny bit longer the first time around, but once you're well practiced, it should be faster than that. And here's the thing. I know that some schools, as I said earlier, prefer to hand out exam supervisions as part of daily replacements. I understand the logic, but I have always held the view that early notification and transparency is the key to fairness and equity. And I think it's a great way to build school culture. Teachers, I think, feel valued and they appreciate knowing their supervision schedule in advance. And when the roster is genuinely fair, it can do wonders for morale. So that's my advertisement for this. That's the elevator pitch for this roster. As I said before, rather than me talking through slide after slide, I'm going to do this live. So I'm going to take you straight into the app and we will build a roster together. So let me switch over here. If you're logging in, remember, as always, never type a password into a school data site. Always click the Microsoft icon when you are logging in. So I am going to click on Exam Roster Generator here, and I'm going to press New Project over on the right. I'll give it a name and I will call this one Marty Test 009, and my OCD will make me change test to capital. And I'll say this is School Data College 2026 Semester 1. Now, down here, you can either link to an existing exam solver project or you can upload files manually. If you have not made any changes whatsoever to the exam timetable you generated, that means the academic timetable is still the same as when you imported it and the exam solution is the same. You haven't swapped, specialist maths from session 2 to session 3 in the solution. You haven't swapped any teachers in the master academic timetable. If that's the case, click use existing exam solver project and go to the drop down and pick your project here. I think we all know that we're going to make a few changes either to the timetable or to the solution before we use it, before we're ready to make the roster. And so I'm going to press upload files manually. From here, you can upload your TFX file. I'll just move this off the screen. And that's your academic TFX file. And upload your CSV solution file. And I strongly suggest using the enriched CSV. Now, what I mean by enriched is you got a solution CSV at the end of running the exam timetabler last week. Then we had 3 apps where you could enrich it with, I think, times and a few other things. You could make an exam timetable in Word, and you could also make an exam TFX. I really strongly suggest going through and using those 3 apps because you're actually going to find a few shortcuts here today. Press Create Project when you have synced your files, and this can sometimes take 5 to 10 seconds. This one's quite quick. That's because it is extracting a fair bit of data. You can see in here that you can actually replace these 2 files later, but if you are going to replace your academic timetable or your solution, it's going to have downstream consequences. And so you probably want to get this pretty right. You could definitely do a demo run, but you want to have these 2 files pretty rock solid before you do your final roster run. Okay, always press the buttons in the bottom right-hand corner. You've got some shortcuts over on the left, but for navigating through the first time, I definitely suggest pressing the buttons in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, the first reason to, I'm not sure I pressed that then, I'll try that again. I did. The first reason to use the enriched CSV is you can see here that it has brought in my start times. It's also brought in my reading time and my writing time. End time is automatically calculated. If you don't use the enricher, you'll probably see all your start times at 9 a.m. And what you'll need to do is you'll need to use the on-screen filters. You might select session 3, tick all, bulk apply settings. You might say, oh, I just want to update the start time, not reading or writing, but I want all session 3s to start at 3 p.m. and then you'd press apply settings. I don't need to do this because I've brought in the enriched file, but there are some shortcuts there as well. Okay, now we go to supervision. This is the timetable supervision rule screen, if you like. The first decision up here, you can see supervision types. And so you'll ask yourself a few questions. Do we have a dedicated person on the roster who puts out the papers? Do we have, well, you will have general supervisors. Does someone line them up beforehand? Is there a starter as, you know, distinguished from the lineup person? And is there a finisher? Now, in the schools where I've done their rosters, they don't tend to have the lineup person. It's often the same person as the starter. So I'm just going to toggle that one off. Now, these are, it's quite small, but hopefully you can see it on your screen. These are intended to be read as sentences. And so here, papers should end 10 minutes before the exam starts. So this formula actually works backwards. If you change this to 15 minutes, you want to make sure the papers are out well before the exam starts, then the sentence changes. Papers should end 15 minutes before exam starts. I've found through a little bit of, you know, trial and error and research that 7 seconds per paper is about right. So if you've got 100 papers to put out, you know, it's just under 12 minutes, but you can obviously change that and it will work backwards and give you a start time when the person on papers needs to arrive. General, I like to say it should start 5 minutes before the exam starts and it should end 5 minutes after the exam ends so they can help pick up the papers and get the students out. Now over here on the right, we can see that the longest supervision block should be 55 minutes. The app will actually balance times across all supervisors within an exam. And so you won't have one person doing a 60 and someone else doing a 20. This is my favorite part over here, the changeover. Set a 5 minute or however long you like, a 5 minute overlap between each supervisor, the swap over period. The outgoing supervisor will stay until the replacement is settled in. We all know that scenario, and I think it has an effect on morale where you are in an exam, the person replacing you is 2 or 3 minutes late, and you've got to get to a year 12 class or something like that. It can really kind of irk you a little bit. That 5 minute changeover means that if they're 2 minutes late and you leave 2 minutes early, there is still 1 minute while you're both there in the venue. Really important, obviously, in exams. You can't leave an exam venue until the next supervisor has arrived. Okay, starter should start 5 minutes before, you might want it earlier, and it should run for 20 minutes. Finisher should start 5 minutes before the exam ends and run for 15 minutes. Let's go to ratios. Now, these are based on student numbers. You could delete lineup if it's not a supervision type, but it won't access it anyway because we've toggled it off. Papers, I like to say that if you need 15 students or more, maybe 20 even, 20 students or more for there to be a need for someone to put out the papers. If you've got 19 students or fewer, I reckon one of the first general supervisors can just take the papers with them and throw them on the desks. So this means you won't have a papers person under 20 students, for exams under 20 students. General, you must have someone there if you've got a student in the exam. And we'll get to additional ratios in a second. Don't worry about lineup. Starter, I'd say it's a bit like papers. If you don't have 20 students, you probably don't need a starter. The general supervisor can just start the exam. Same with a finisher. You don't need someone coming back to finish the exam if you've only got 14 students in the exam. Let's add a couple. Let's say with papers, if there are 100 students or more, you need a second person on papers. That's down here. And general, this is the obvious and common one. If you've got 25 or more, you want a second supervisor. If you've got, say, 65 or more, you need a third. And if you've got maybe 100 and, I better choose general. If you've got, say, 130 or more, you'll need a fourth supervisor in the exam room. Press next and go to the date cycle. Tip, always press auto generate first up here, and always have your kind of exam dates on hand, obviously, while you're doing this. The start date, let's say it's June the 15th, Monday the 15th, and let's say that's a day 6. Confirm and guess will skip the weekends. Once it gets to the Friday, it'll skip. Let's say that Monday is the 23rd. Sorry, let's say the Monday's a day off, and you actually then the next day of exams is the 23rd. You will have to press the calendar and select the 23rd, and you'll need to update subsequent dates in here. Okay, let's press next and go to lesson times. Now, this is the bit where I mentioned, or this is why I mentioned having that bell times enricher. I might personally think that using the bell times enrichment HTML file that I sent through and syncing it to your timetable file really quickly, it'll ask you to go to your file explorer and select your timetable file. I think it's a fair bit faster. We do have filters in here, so you can do things like you can say, you can put a filter here and say all period 1 classes, we'll tick those, bulk edit, they start at, whatever time. You can do that for all your periods, but if you've already done it, maybe if you've got some complexity like different times across different role classes or anything that's slightly more complex, I think that HTML file is probably a little bit easier. And so I'm going to cheat a bit and I'm going to import a CSV. If you're importing a CSV, always replace all existing lesson times. I'll click this and I will find my lesson times and I'll press import. And you can see that it's updated the start time, the duration, and it calculates the end time. This is obviously vital. If the app is allocating teachers to supervision slots, it needs to know when they're teaching, and the lesson times are the basis of when they're teaching. It also needs to know, when we press next, which lessons are cancelled, because I think most of us will be assigning supervision duties to teachers who have had their lessons cancelled. There's no shortcut here, but it's pretty quick, I think. And so just to give you an example, if you set the filter, this is what I've found from a bit of trial and error is the fastest way to do this. I like to select the dates. And so let's say your year 10s and 11s have exams on every day, but let's say they've got the last day off, just for argument's sake, and they're actually going back to class on the last day. You can tick all these dates, scroll down here and don't tick the last one. And then you could go to roll class 10 and 11, get out of the filter, tick all, press cancel selected. And you can see they're all cancelled. All the filtered ones are cancelled here. If we get rid of the filter there, you'll notice that some are cancelled, some aren't, because we've got every lesson that's running during the exam period in the school here. If we go back into the filter now, and I probably should have left those dates in the filter. Let's say your year 9 start on the 3rd day and they have classes on the first 2 days of exams. Do this, select roll class, say the 9s. Tick all those, press cancel selected. Now, let's say you have accidentally just cancelled all of your homerooms. In fact, I don't need dates for this. I can just say period equals homeroom, and you will have, depending on the role class they're in, they might not be in that role class, but let's say you've accidentally, there are some homerooms that are cancelled. You can tick all these and simply press reinstate selected, and none of these will be cancelled anymore. All right, let's move.
Okay, that's so I'm got a PD on.
Move forward to venues. And in here, this is drawing the room list from the rooms that are in your synced TFX, your synced timetable file. Let's say, just to make this quick, we say that these first 5 rooms can host exams. Here are your exam venues over on the right. We know that if a classroom is hosting a class, it'll have a different number of seats than if it's hosting an exam. So let's just put some mock values in here. Let's say this one here can host 100. These ones down here can only host 40 and whatever the case may be. Maybe this one can only host 20. Press next and go to allocate venues. Now, I kind of find this screen fun. You can select the venues one by one, but if your school has most exams in the same venue, then what I like to do is I like to tick them all, press bulk allocate, press assign all exams to the same venue, and put them, say, for example, in the gym, apply allocation. Now, what you'll see here is that there are some exams where if you put them in the same room, you're going to exceed the capacity. So for example, these 3 exams have, 300 and whatever, 330 or so, 332 students in them. And so you're going to need to move some of these out. As you move them out, they become available again. I won't fix them all. There'll be some issues down the bottom as well, but you can actually leave the issues there if you need to. This next screen is exam groups, and it's really quite powerful. What it has done is it has grouped together any exams where they are in the same venue at the same time on the same day. And at the same time means same start time. So they can have different finish times. That's completely fine. We know that often you'll sit the early finishing exam near the door and they'll finish a bit earlier. It's a great way to save on additional supervisors, but it's probably, you'd argue, not a great idea to start exams at different times in the same venue. So we have our groups here. Now, if we go over to the right, you can also see the supervision requirements for that exam in that venue. And so this one here is English, which goes for longer. And so it's got a 4th general supervision slot. You can see all the times and how many supervisors you're going to need. You don't have to do anything with this. It's just the information on the screen as a bit of a sanity check. Press next and we'll go to staffing. Now, in here, it's a really important page. It's basically asking you who can do what. I would argue that you want to be quite precise in here. You don't need to worry about this data over here though. So you don't need to be so precise that you say, oh, Emily doesn't lose any minutes, any lessons, so we won't tick her. Don't worry about that. If Emily doesn't lose any minutes, she won't get supervision sessions anyway. So all you need to do is at the person level, say, what can this person do in terms of their eligibility? And so a good place to start would be to say, all right, let's tick everyone and say everyone. So I'm clicking bulk edit, top right. Everyone can be a general supervisor. So I'm going to press enable. Apply those. And I'm sure that not everyone can be a general, but we'll get to that in a second. Another one where you'll want to bulk apply. This one over on the right, that I can't imagine how you could possibly know what it will stand for. I'll tell you. It stands for sessions on days with no classes. Now, if you've got full-timers, getting an exam supervision on a day when you don't have any classes is a great thing. If you're a part-timer, it's a terrible thing because you're not at school. And so what I would suggest you could do here is you could set the filter to say if the load is greater than or equal to, and we'll have a look in the load column. You may know that the TFX settings multiplies loads by 100. And so in this school, I think full-time is 44 or 4,500. I'm going to say anyone over, say, 4,350. I'll add that filter. I'm going to call them full-time. I'm going to tick them all. I'm going to bulk edit and say these people are eligible to get a supervision session on a day when they have no classes. And I will apply that. And if I get rid of the filter now, you'll see that all the part-timers don't have it ticked, but all the full-timers do. Gee, there's a lot of part-timers. Next, we're not going to worry about lineup because we don't have that as operational in our school. Papers, I'm sure there'll be certain people who can put the papers out and others who can't. Let's just pick some names at random. Let's say that these are your heads of learning areas and they are the ones who you want putting the papers out. Let's scroll down and let's say your year level and house leaders are the ones who are eligible to start or finish an exam. So let's just, again, tick some at random, and we'll say that those guys who can start them can also finish them. And let's say that the ones who start and finish them probably can't do general supervisions. This is the way I use it anyway. If you're a house leader or a year level leader, you'll start and finish the exams, but we don't need you to also do general supervision sessions. Oh, one final thing, you've got the target minutes here, the target percentage, sorry. That target is a percentage of your lost minutes, a percentage of your cancelled minutes. So at the moment it's set to 50%, and you can play around with this, but I think about 60 is right. And so I'm going to bulk edit. Don't think I need to tick the star for this one. Set 60% and say apply to all. Go back in, it's now set to 60%. And so 60% of 500 is 300. Matthew here has a target of 300 minutes worth of supervision. So that's how this screen works. Only a couple more screens. We're almost at the end. We go to the teachers one, and this one is often doing a bit of calculating, so it takes a few seconds. What this has done is it's actually listed out in a long list every single supervision slot that you're going to need to fill. And what you can do is you can say, I know who I want to do that session. So it might be, the specialist maths exam, or it might be a language exam, or it might be a music exam. You know that you've got certain people in mind who have to do session one, or maybe put the papers out, or whatever the case may be. You can simply click assign over here, and you've got a few options here. You can choose anyone who's not teaching, anyone who is eligible for this supervision type, or anyone who is eligible and not teaching. You might not get enough people in here who have had classes cancelled on that day. You can also, I forgot to make a note about this, but I'm pretty sure you can, you can type in a code, so a subject code. So if you did Sci, for example, apply the filter, anyone who's got Sci in a code down here, in a class code down here, will appear in the list, and then you can simply tick them, apply or assign, and their name will be in the teachers column over here, and they are now fixed to that slot. I often use this, and I know it's late in the piece, but sometimes there's like a final check, because the exams are so fast to make and the rosters are really quick to make as well. I'll often go through the whole process a couple of times, and I'll just use this as a quick check to make sure that I've put the music exam on at a time when the music teacher is free, the one who needs to supervise it. You don't have to go through the whole process, obviously, to find that out. You could just look at their timetable first, but sometimes it's like it's a final way to check that you haven't accidentally put the music exam on when the only person who can supervise it is teaching. Now we'll go to parameters, and this is our last page before we press solve. You can see over here, there's a couple of toggles that you've got at your disposal. You can either just allocate supervision sessions on days where teachers have lost classes, or you can shift them to better days. Similarly, you can allow teachers to get more than one supervision on a day if you tick this box here. My personal view, again, and experience tells me from having met a lot of timetablers over the journey, that this here, only do it on lost class days and don't allow multiple. It's really common, but this will get you much, much, much better coverage, and it will get you much fairer coverage, I think. It is a kind of it's a change management thing. It can be difficult for teachers to get used to this idea that, hey, why have I got a supervision today? I didn't lose any classes today. But what you will find is you'll get better coverage, and you will get a much lower percentage of lost minutes replaced if you allow the solver to smooth the curve, if you like, to spread the load across the days. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it, that if you have a 5-on day and you lose one class, you don't want the solver to have to use you on that day just because you've got allocate only ticked. You would much prefer that it gives you that exam supervision the next day when you've only got one on, or something like this. Same thing. If you've got 5 on and you lose 4 of them, it's not really fair that you only get 1 exam supervision on that day. All right, this is all common sense. I think I've made my point. Last couple of things over here: time limits, max total minutes per day. Set it to whatever you want, but this here is teaching plus exam supervision minutes. It obviously doesn't count cancelled minutes, so it's the minutes that you're still teaching plus minutes in exam supervision. And this one over here is just exam supervision minutes. You might think, you know, exam supervisions are quite boring and it's a little bit unfair to give someone more than 120 minutes of supervision on a day. If that's you, feel free to, you know, leave this at 120 or even lower it, and buffer time between exam supervisions down there. Then you'll press launch solver, and I'm going to do I was about to say Peter Russell Clark here and say here's one we prepared earlier, but he's got some other negative connotations, so maybe I'll choose Gabriel Gatte or someone like that. I would suggest downloading the config here and downloading the table data, and I'm going to show you in a week or two why, but I'll explain really quickly. We have another app where you can load this data in to, well, the other app, and it will generate some nice looking reports for you and some equity and fairness reports. So as I said, I will press solve. It can take a little bit of time, this one, to kick off. And in fact, in some instances, it'll take up to a minute. Maybe that wasn't a good idea, but it can be chewing up some resources. And so I don't think I can go back to exam, and you'll occasionally get that. It will kick off, but occasionally it'll take a minute or so to kick off. In a second, I'll show you one that I've prepared earlier. So we'll have to play the waiting game for a sec. Yeah, there we go. It's processing now. Solver initiated. Press the X. It'll kick you back to the front screen. You'll see pending. I did say last week that, you know, you need to smash the refresh button, and then it dawned on me, of course, that you'll get these up in the top right. You'll get a notification. That first notification will be telling you it's running. And so if I refresh here, you'll see it's running. And you don't have to press refresh. You can just wait until your next notification comes through, and that'll probably be the one that tells you it's solved. Really quickly, this one down here, test 8, that I did, you know, an hour or two ago, is the same project. It took about 2 or 3 minutes to solve. And so I'm going to press open roster project just to show you what it looks like once it's finished. This one was a feasible solution. We go to the solution summary. It has a count of all the supervision sessions that everyone got. If you press next to analyze constraints, it will have the master roster. As I said, it's you can download it as a CSV. It's great, you know, and it's rapid, but it's not absolutely usable in this form just yet. You can see teacher schedules, but again, it's more just a sanity check at the moment to see who got what. Venue schedules is a great one for maintenance, you know, to find out when the venue is first used and last used and so on. The workload analysis is brilliant because you'll be able to see who's been underutilized or balanced or whatever the case may be. And unassigned slots. This one had no unassigned slots. If you've got a really, really complex structure and you don't have that many cancelled classes, I've seen instances where you've got, you know, across 400 slots, you might have 10 to 15, maybe 20 that aren't assigned, because you'll need to break some of your rules that are in place in order to get full distribution, full allocation in the roster. I'll just go back home just because I'm interested to see. It's still running at the moment. I probably didn't make quite as many staff as eligible for supervision in this one as I did with the second last one, but you get the idea. Depending on the complexity, it should take anywhere from about 2 to 5 minutes to solve. That is it. So I will, as always, I'll throw it over to you. I hope, as always, that there might be some questions from the group. I'll give you a couple of minutes to think of them. While you are thinking about them, just a note about the next fortnight. Next week, there's no webinar. And the reason there's no webinar is because we've got 20 schools, I think, confirmed so far to attend the executive seminar at De La Salle. Please, it's an opportunity for me to yell at your executive team and tell them that there are some timetabling processes that they really need to adhere to if you're going to have a chance of producing the best possible timetable for them. And then we come back on the 19th with a session on subject structure, predictions, subject groups, basically getting your data in a great shape for next year. We have a question. Jim.
Hey, Marty, good to see you. Thanks for all that. Just on the exam supervision, special provisions now, getting kids sort of 1 kid per room with 1 staff member or 5 kids with 1 staff member. Can we put that in? Is that a possibility?
It's a great question, and you've reminded me, we had a school who asked for this last year, and we built something for them. And I can't remember what it was at the moment. We built something, and the guy who built it is here, so I won't put him under pressure. I'll speak to him offline. But from memory, we have something that minimize the number of additional rooms you would need when it was solving, and although I think that was the exam timetable. Can I get back to you, Jim? I know that we definitely did something for a school last year. I've got a feeling, though, it might have been the exam timetable app, not the supervision app.
No problems. Whatever you need to do, young fella.
I'm not that young. Thanks, Jim. As always, I'll hang around if there are any questions that are kind of percolating at the moment. Otherwise, as always, feel free. I'll just check my emails, actually. I did say that you could email me. Nothing at the moment. Feel free to email if there's a question you prefer to ask offline. If not, thank you again for joining us, and please talk your executive into turning up next week if you haven't already. And I look forward to seeing all of you again in a fortnight.
Thanks, Marty. All the best.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everyone.